What's up, YouTube fans? Today we're going to do a comparison of the FansToys Ethereaon with the Zeta Toys Superitron, both versions of a Masterpiece Scale Superion. Now I'm looking at the metallic version today. It's fully painted, mostly fully painted, and a little bit more premium than the original release, so just keep that in mind. It also came with this additional chest piece here. This came out in, I believe, 2019, 2020 timeframe. This just came out in August of 2024, so about 5 years apart. And I know people are interested to see, do they want to upgrade? Now, as I always mention with these comparisons, I try to be as objective as possible, but there's always subjectivity involved when you're comparing and judging things like this. So if I pick one and you prefer the other, then you win. I really try to do these to help people decide what direction they want to go with their collection, even if that includes getting both of them, which some people will probably do. So with that being said, let's get started. We'll start off with accessories. All right, so here are the accessories they come with. And by the way, we're only looking at combined mode today. We're not looking at the robot modes or the jet modes. I've done some comparisons between these two in the past on the individual robots. Zeta just never really measured up in that area. So we're just going to look at the combiner. Therefore, we're only going to look at the combining accessories here. And I mentioned already, they both come with a chest plate that's removable. Only difference is the Zeta Toys one is attached with some adhesive, so I can't take it off to show you. But they both have the chest plate. They both have a gun done in this gunmetal color. They both have alternate heads. Now, the FansToys one is built into the head, whereas Zeta gave you a separate head. And since we're talking about the head, it does have a gimmick here. It lights up and makes sound. The FansToys also lights up. You got to put batteries in it, of course. So they would be tied at least on that gimmick. And we'll count that off with the extra ears here, which are done in this gold paint and one of these faces. And what you're left with is these wing pieces. Now, I looked at the Zeta, and I'm guessing maybe you could remove these. I'm not 100% sure. Looks like you could figure out a way to do that. I didn't want to break it, so I didn't remove it. But it does have the wing parts. So I'm going to count those out. So we're left with 2 extra faces for the FansToys. So we'll give FansToys the accessories. All right, next let's talk about the gimmicks on these two. And I just mentioned they both have the light up eye feature. The Zeta comes with the sound built in as well. But the FansToys has the swappable wing piece, so you can slide in and out, as well as the chest piece. They both have the chest piece. But one additional thing that FansToys does is the combiner parts can turn into a display base for the jets. And that's pretty cool. This one doesn't really do that. So I'm going to give Gimmicks over to FansToys just by a hair due to that extra mode. Right now, let's talk about the cartoon accuracy and sculpt. In order to do that, we'll put the G1 image there so you can take a look for yourself. And both of these guys really nailed it. Now, I have the metallic version, which is a little bit more silver and gray than white. So I'm not going to hold that against them because the original one was more white. But they both really captured the look of Superion with a little bit of their own spin and aesthetic on it. As far as sculpt, they both have nice sculpted details. They all have the wings hanging off the back. The FansToys does have this little issue. I'll talk about that in a minute. But overall, pretty similar here in terms of sculpt. So we'll give them a tie on sculpt and cartoon accuracy. All right, now let's talk about the paint and build quality on these two. And this is a category that FansToys usually destroys people in. This time, I'm not so sure. Now, we're just talking about the combined mode here. We're not talking about the individual bot modes. And when it comes to combined mode, the Zeta is really quite solid. I've never had any issues with it. Posing it and displaying it and moving it around, nothing's really gone wrong. On the FansToys, same thing, pretty solid, but there's a couple little things that get in the way on the build. These getting tabbed in is pretty tough, and some of these back parts of the legs like to pop out as you're playing with it, manipulating it. So just a minor grievance there with the build quality. As far as the paint though, both of these are fully painted. I'm not sure about the original Zeta if it was fully painted. This one happens to be painted. It's got a metallic fleck all throughout the red and then a metallic silver. This gold paint, little red accents, pretty much fully covered. Same with the FansToys. Now, I prefer the look of the FansToys paint, but Both of them are painted, so we'll give them a tie on paint. All right, next we'll talk about the articulation. In order to do that, we're going to articulate each one individually. It's a bit of a bear for me to actually do this, so I'm going to be talking about some of the articulation, potentially not showing it all, just so I'm not sweating over here trying to do it. But FansToys, the head is on a rotating swivel, so it goes up to there, down to there, rotates around. Shoulders can go up on this joint right here. You have to be careful because as you push up on this, you can detach the arm. So you have to push up on this, gunmetal piece in the middle. But you can get the shoulders up to there, down to there. I like to have it up one click. You have a rotation here at the bicep. Single jointed elbow gets you 90 degrees. You have a rotation at the wrist on a ratchet, in and out movement at the wrist. Individually articulated fingers. These hands are the best hands in the business for any transformer ever. Multiple 3 joints for the fingers, splay out for the fingers, a palm joint here, thumb joint. Really good hands there. You have a waist rotation on a ratchet. You have an ab crunch on a ratchet. You have leg joints, and this is the part I'm going to skip on camera, but legs will kick forward all the way. Back, it's limited, doesn't go very far back. And then out to the side on ratchets. And the ratchets do hold, but the weight of it is just a little too heavy for the figure to hold up on its own. For the feet and the knees, we have a 90-degree bend at the knee. A little past 90 actually. It's a single joint, but it gets a little past 90 degrees. And then ankle tilts, you can pull these out. That gives you a little bit more, but you have a tilt here. I still think it's a ratchet, but forward and backward, and a tilt as well. For the Zeta toys, the head is on a rotating swivel, so it goes up to there, down to there, and rotates around. Shoulders go up on a ratchet joint up to here. About the same, it's a little bit different of a joint on the Zeta. You have rotation around. Hopefully I showed that on the other one. You have a rotation here at the bicep. Single jointed elbow gets you 90 degrees. A little bit short. In and out movement on a ratchet. I do like that. Fingers are individually articulated. This is the second best hands. It used to be my favorite hands, but this is now my second favorite hands. Just because it doesn't have the splay out option. And it does have a movable thumb. So this is one of the better thumbs. But it doesn't have that, that joint here on the ball of the hand. So slightly less articulation on those. I'll give a point over to FansToys just for that. We have a waist rotation. We have an ab crunch. Both are on a ratchet. The hip skirts will move out of the way. The legs will kick forward and backward. So this gets an additional backward motion, whereas the FansToys is held up by the hip skirts. So you get a little bit extra here on this hip rotation. Out to the side on a ratchet as well. And that's secured nicely. You can also move these hip skirts out to get more movement. The FansToys also does that, but you have to unclip it from the side. For the knees, we get 90-degree bend, single ratchet, but it's got this little piston joint in there, which I think is kind of cool. It can sometimes get caught up, so just pay attention to that. And for the feet, we have ankle tilt up to the side on a ratchet, toe tilt up and down on a ratchet, and you get a rotation here, which is nice. All right, so based on the scores there, Zeta Toys has a better movement at the hip because it actually goes backwards, and then you've got a rotation here at the foot. So we're going to give articulation over to Zeta just by a hair. All right, now we'll talk about the transformation and engineering on these two guys. When it comes to transformation, we're really just talking about combining them, right? Putting them together. We're not talking about the individual bot modes or jet modes. And the Zeta comes in the box ready to combine. Basically, all the limbs are ready. Whereas FansToys, there's quite a bit of work to do because they come separate and the body's not quite ready. Also, because of the weight on the FansToys, they have a lot more securing tabs and hardware just to make it hold together. And especially the legs, it's a bit of a bear to get them together. Once it's together, it's great, but I do give transformation over to Zeta. I think it's simpler, more straightforward, less complicated stuff going on. When it comes to engineering, I think I'd give a little edge over to FansToys just because they were able to work in some cool gimmicks with that flight stand mode. Plus, we've got the slide out wings, the swap head where you can just flip it around, the swappable ears. All that stuff is just really cool engineering. And also, I like the way they did some of the articulation. They built in some really nice articulation. Just the way they did it is cool. So I'm going to give engineering just by a hair over to FansToys. Next, we'll talk about the cost on these two. Pretty obvious difference here. The Zeta comes in at $400 in US retail, Canadian retail. The FansToys comes in at a whopping $1,050 if you add up all the pieces that you need to get them. So Zeta is going to win on cost. A big factor here, more than double the cost. And the final factor here is the members' choice category. We ask my members which one they prefer, just based on their own preferences, no other factors. And you can see the score. FansToys is going to win the members' choice category. So final thoughts on the comparison. You can see the score. And we have a tie. And I'm actually pretty surprised. I wasn't expecting it to be a tie. I thought for sure FansToys was going to win. But that means the Zeta really holds up. You know, it's a great figure after all this time. One of the biggest points of it is this price, right? $400 for a full combiner compared to over $1,000. Now, if you prefer the aesthetic of the FansToys, then, you know, nothing's going to change that. My personal preference is I do prefer the look of the FansToys. But as far as the overall playability and overall balance of price with quality, I think Zeta's got them there. Now, my personal preference, I'm probably going to be putting FansToys in combined mode and in the robot modes. But nice options to have. You know, it's a really great time to be a collector that we have both of these available to us. But that's it for today. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.